My name is Aria Reynolds, and I'm 24 years old. 6 months ago, my mother gave away my car, the SUV my grandmother had gifted me for my 24th birthday. She handed the keys to my sister and told me, "Madison needs it more. You're single. Uber is more convenient for you." I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I just watched my car disappear from my life like I never mattered. Then came Grandma Eleanor's 70th birthday party. I showed up in an Uber. 40 family members watched me walk through those restaurant doors empty-handed. When Grandma asked where my car was, my mom smiled that same smile and repeated those same words in front of everyone. What happened next made every person in that room realize they had severely underestimated both me and my grandmother. Before I continue, if you're curious about how this story ends, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this kind of content. Drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. Growing up, I was always the invisible one. My family wasn't large, just my parents, my older sister Madison, and me. Dad worked as an accountant. Mom stayed home until we were in middle school, then took a part-time job at a real estate office. We weren't wealthy, but we weren't struggling either. Middle-class suburban life in every sense. Madison was 4 years older than me. She had Mom's blonde hair, Mom's green eyes, Mom's laugh. People always said they could be twins. I took after Dad's side, darker hair, quieter demeanor, a tendency to observe rather than participate. From the beginning, Madison was the sun. I was the shadow. When we were kids, if Madison wanted my toy, Mom would say, "Aria, share with your sister, you're more flexible." If Madison needed the bigger room, Mom would explain, "Madison has more friends over. You understand, right?" If Madison's activities conflicted with mine, guess who's got canceled? I learned early that flexible was code for expendable. By the time I turned 20, I'd built my own life. I worked as a freelance content writer, remote work that paid well enough for my apartment, my bills, my independence. But because I didn't commute to an office, Mom never considered it a real job. "When are you getting a proper career?" she'd ask at every family dinner. "Madison has a husband, a baby on the way. What do you have?" Madison married Derek Clark at 24, had little Ethan at 25. She lived the life Mom had blueprinted for both of us. I was the rough draft that never got published. Looking back, I realized flexible was just another word for expendable in my family. And that car, my birthday SUV, was supposed to change everything. It didn't. The second sign came a year before the party. Grandma Eleanor had been living alone since Grandpa passed. She was 70 then, sharp as ever, but the family worried. Someone floated the idea of her moving closer to us. Mom took charge immediately. She called a family meeting, which meant her, Dad, Madison, and Derek sitting around our parents' dining table. I found out about it 3 days later, after all the decisions had been made. "We talked about Grandma," Mom mentioned casually over the phone. "Madison's going to check on her twice a month. Derek will handle any repairs at her place." I waited for my assignment. It never came. "What about me?" I finally asked. "I work from home. I could help with—" "Oh, sweetie, you're so busy with your little computer thing." Mom's voice dripped with dismissal. "Let Madison handle it. She's better with people anyway." Better with people. Right. What Mom didn't know was that I'd been video calling Grandma every Sunday for 2 years. While Madison's twice-a-month visits lasted 30 minutes max, Grandma and I would talk for hours. About Grandpa, about her garden, about the books she was reading. Once, during one of our calls, she said something I didn't understand at the time. "You remind me so much of your grandfather, Aria." Her voice was soft, thoughtful. "Quiet, but you see everything." I laughed it off then. I shouldn't have. Because Grandma saw everything too. Every phone call where Mom talked over me. Every holiday where Madison's family got the spotlight, every small cruelty disguised as practicality. She was watching, waiting, and she was the one person in my family I had completely underestimated. My 24th birthday was supposed to be forgettable. I'd stopped expecting much from my family. A card. Maybe dinner if Mom felt generous. The bar was underground, and somehow they still found ways to trip over it. But that year was different. Mom called a week before. "Come to the house Saturday. We have something for you." I almost didn't go. Almost made up an excuse about work deadlines. But something in her voice, an unusual warmth, made me curious. The whole family was there when I arrived. Mom, Dad, Madison with Derek and baby Ethan. And in the driveway, wrapped in a giant red bow, sat a navy blue Honda CR-V. I stopped breathing. "Happy birthday, Aria." Mom handed me the keys, smiling like she'd invented generosity. "We wanted you to have reliable transportation." I remember my hands shaking as I took those keys. Madison had gotten her first car at 22, right after graduation. I was 24 and had been taking buses and Ubers for years. I'd stopped expecting equity. I'd stopped expecting anything. But here it was. Proof that maybe, I mattered. Grandma Eleanor stood by the garage, watching. When our eyes met, she smiled. Not her usual smile, something deeper, knowing. "Your grandmother wanted you to have a car," Mom added, almost as an afterthought. She thought it was time. I didn't catch the significance then. I should have. That car wasn't just transportation. It was the first time in 24 years I felt visible, acknowledged, like I existed in this family beyond being Madison's shadow. I drove it everywhere for 10 months, built memories in that car, made it mine. Then Madison's car broke down, and everything changed. 3 weeks before Grandma's 70th birthday, I drove to my parents' house for Sunday dinner. Madison's minivan sat in the driveway as usual, but in the garage, in the spot where Dad's old sedan usually lived, I saw something that made my stomach drop. My SUV, navy blue, red ribbon long gone but unmistakable, with Ethan's car seat strapped in the back. I found Mom in the kitchen, stirring something that smelled like her usual pot roast. "Mom, why is my car in your garage?" She didn't look up. "Oh, Madison needed to borrow it. Her van's in the shop." "Borrow it?" "Just for a few days, honey. Her mechanic said it could take a week." I wanted to argue. I wanted to ask why no one called me first. But Madison walked in with Ethan on her hip, and the moment dissolved into baby talk and dinner preparations. A week passed. No car. 2 weeks. Still nothing. I texted Madison, "Hey, any update on your van? Need my car back soon." Her reply came hours later. "Mechanic says another week. Thanks for understanding." I called Mom. "When am I getting my car back?" "Aria, don't be difficult." Her tone shifted, colder now. "Madison has a child. She needs reliable transportation. You work from home. You can Uber." "That's not the point. It's my car." "It's a car, Aria. Don't be so materialistic." She sighed heavily. "Your sister needs it more. You're single, flexible. You understand." There it was again. Flexible. "Mom, I didn't agree to—" "We'll talk about this later." She hung up. I stared at my phone, anger and disbelief fighting for dominance. This wasn't borrowing anymore. This was theft with a smile. I called Madison directly the next day. "Mads, I need to talk about the car." "What about it?" She sounded distracted. "Ethan was crying somewhere in the background. It's been 2 weeks. I need it back." Silence. Then, "Mom said I could use it. I thought you were okay with it." "No one asked me if I was okay with it." "Well?" She paused. "I mean, you don't really need it, right? You work from home." I gripped my phone so hard I thought the screen might crack. "Madison, that's not the point. It's mine. I should have been asked." "Look, Aria, I have a 3-year-old. Do you know how hard it is to get him to daycare, to doctor's appointments, to—" I know your life is hard. That doesn't mean you can take my things. I'm not taking anything. Her voice turned sharp. You're being dramatic. It's just a car. Then give it back. More silence. Mom said we could work it out at Grandma's party. We'll talk then, okay? She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my apartment, staring at the Uber app on my phone, and realized something that made my chest tight. If I stayed silent now, this would happen again. And again. Every time Madison needed something, Mom would volunteer my resources, my time, my space, my life. I'd be flexible forever. I decided I would talk to Mom at Grandma's party. Privately, calmly, like adults. I'd explain how this felt. Set a boundary, get my car back. I didn't want a war, I just wanted respect. But Mom, I would learn, had other plans, very public plans. The day of Grandma Eleanor's 70th birthday arrived with perfect autumn weather. The Rosewood was one of those restaurants that whispered money, white tablecloths, crystal chandeliers, waiters who moved like ghosts. Mom had reserved the private dining room for 40 guests, extended family, cousins I hadn't seen in years, aunts and uncles who still pinched cheeks and asked about boyfriends. I took an Uber. The driver dropped me off at the entrance, and I smoothed down my emerald dress, took a breath, and walked toward the door. That's when I saw it. My SUV, navy blue, parked 3 spots from the entrance with a baby on board sticker I'd never bought plastered on the rear window. Madison and Derek were just climbing out. Ethan squirmed in Derek's arms, fussing about his tiny bow tie. Madison spotted me and waved like nothing was wrong. Aria, you look great. Did you Uber? I forced a smile that felt like broken glass. Convenient, right? I managed. So convenient. She didn't catch the edge in my voice, or maybe she just didn't care. We should go in. Mom's been stressed about the seating chart all morning. Derek nodded at me, a brief, awkward acknowledgement, and they headed inside. Ethan's whining echoed off the parking lot concrete. I stood there for a moment, staring at my car. The car I'd made memories in. The car that meant I existed in this family, now decorated with someone else's sticker, someone else's car seat, someone else's life. I walked into that restaurant knowing I'd have to say something, confront Mom quietly. Get this resolved. I didn't know Mom had already been talking. To everyone. The private dining room buzzed with conversation and clinking glasses. Grandma Eleanor sat at the head of the long rectangular table, elegant in navy blue, her silver hair swept back. At 70, she still had the posture of a dancer and eyes that missed nothing. I found my seat, predictably at the far end, near the cousins I barely knew. The first hour passed in small talk and appetizers. Uncle Robert gave a toast. Aunt Patricia shared childhood stories about Grandma that made everyone laugh. Then, during the main course, Grandma looked directly at me. Aria, sweetheart, her voice cut through the chatter. I noticed you arrived alone. Where's that beautiful car we got you for your birthday? 40 heads turned my way. Before I could open my mouth, Mom's voice rang out from across the table. Oh, Aria gave it to Madison! She beamed like she was announcing a charity donation. Madison has little Ethan, you know. She needed reliable transportation for the baby. She turned to the relatives nearby, her smile widening. Aria is so understanding. She knows her sister needs it more. We're so proud of how generous she's become. Murmurs of approval rippled through the room. How sweet. Such a good sister. Family helps family. I sat frozen, my fork suspended halfway to my mouth. Mom had just rewritten history, in front of everyone. I didn't give anything. I was robbed in slow motion. Grandma's eyes hadn't left my face. She tilted her head slightly. You gave it away, Aria? Her voice was calm. Too calm. Or was it taken? The murmurs stopped. Mom's smile flickered for just a moment, and I felt the entire room shift. Mom, Linda laughed nervously. What a question! Of course Arya gave it willingly. She's not a child. Grandma didn't laugh. She set down her fork with deliberate precision. I'm asking Arya, not you, Linda. Every side conversation died. 40 pairs of eyes bounced between my grandmother and me like spectators at a tennis match. I swallowed hard. My heart pounded so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. I started, then stopped. Looked at Mom's warning glare, looked at Madison's frozen expression, looked at Grandma's steady gaze. No one asked me, I finally said. I was told Madison was borrowing it, for a week. That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks? Grandma repeated. I tried to get it back. My voice grew stronger. Mom said Madison needed it more, because she has a family. Because I'm single. I paused. Because I'm flexible. The room had gone completely silent. Mom stood up, her chair scraping against the hardwood floor. This is a small family matter, everyone. Nothing to worry about. Small? Grandma's voice cut like ice. A car worth $30,000 is a small matter? Someone gasped. I think it was Aunt Patricia. Linda's face drained of color. Mother, can we please discuss this privately? You made it public, Linda. Grandma's eyes never wavered. You announced to this entire room that Arya gave away her car. If that's a lie, it should be corrected in the same room. I looked at Grandma, really looked at her for the first time that night. This wasn't the sweet old woman who baked cookies and told stories about the war. This was someone else entirely, someone who had been watching, waiting, and her moment had arrived. Grandma turned to face my mother fully. Her movements were unhurried, controlled. Linda, let me ask you something. She folded her hands on the table. Do you remember coming to me last year, before Arya's birthday? Mom's jaw tightened. Mother, this isn't the time. Do you remember what you asked me for? Silence. Uncle Robert shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Aunt Patricia leaned forward, her brow furrowed. You asked me for money, Grandma continued, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. From the family trust. You said you wanted to buy Arya a car for her 24th birthday. A proper gift, you said, to show her she mattered. My breath caught in my throat. Mom's face had gone from pale to almost gray. You said, and I remember this clearly, Linda, you said you wanted to do something special for your younger daughter because you knew she often felt overlooked. Grandma's eyes hardened. Those were your exact words. Whispers erupted around the table. I saw cousins exchanging confused glances. Derek was staring at his plate like he wished he could disappear into it. So tell me. Grandma leaned forward slightly. What did you promise me in exchange for that money? Mother, please, what did you promise? Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. She looked around the room, at her siblings, at her nieces and nephews, at the 40 witnesses to her unraveling, and said nothing. Aunt Patricia spoke up softly. Linda, what is she talking about? I watched my mother struggle. For the first time in my life, I saw her without her armor of confidence and control. And I realized, the car wasn't just a gift from my parents. It never had been. I'll tell you what she promised. Grandma's voice was steady as steel. She promised that car would belong to Arya. Only Arya. She signed a paper saying so. The room erupted in murmurs. Mom's face contorted. That paper was it was a formality. For the trust records. The title of that car, Grandma interrupted, is in my name. Not yours, Linda. Not Arya's. Mine. Because I paid for it. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. What? The word escaped before I could stop it. Grandma looked at me and her expression softened for just a moment. I wanted to give you something meaningful, sweetheart, but I know how your mother operates. She returned her gaze to Linda. So I kept the title in my name, and I made your mother sign an agreement stating the car was exclusively for you. Madison stood up suddenly, her chair nearly toppling. Wait. Grandma, I didn't know any of this. Mom told me Arya was fine with... Did you ask her? Grandma's question cut through Madison's protest like a blade. Did you call your sister and ask if you could have her car? Madison's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Mom said, you didn't ask. Grandma nodded slowly. You assumed. You took. Just like you were taught. Derek grabbed Madison's arm, trying to pull her back down into her seat. She resisted for a moment, then crumpled. I sat there, watching my family's carefully constructed narrative collapse in real time. Grandma had known. She'd prepared. She'd waited. And she still wasn't done. Robert, she called to my uncle. Did you bring what I asked for? My heart stopped. Mom moved fast. Before Uncle Robert could respond, she stepped away from her chair, hands raised in a calming gesture. Everyone, please, let's not blow this out of proportion. Her voice had shifted, soothing now, reasonable. This is a family disagreement about a car, that's all. She turned to address the wider table, making eye contact with aunts, uncles, cousins. Aria works from home. She doesn't need to commute. Madison has a toddler who needs to get to daycare, to doctors, to... Linda. Grandma's voice was a warning. Mom ignored her. I made a practical decision for my family. Madison has responsibilities. Aria is young, single, flexible. She can adjust. That's what family does. Some heads nodded. I saw my Aunt Carol whisper something to her husband. And frankly, Mom continued, gaining confidence, I don't think we need to air private matters in front of everyone. This is between my daughters and me. Derek finally spoke up, his voice hesitant but supportive. I agree. This seems like something that could be discussed later. Later? Grandma laughed. A short, sharp sound. Linda has been discussing it later for 3 weeks while driving around in a car that doesn't belong to her daughter. Mother, please. Mom's calm was cracking. You're embarrassing yourself. The room went cold. Grandma rose slowly from her seat. At 70, she still stood tall, shoulders back, chin lifted. I'm embarrassing myself? She repeated each word distinctly. You stole from your own child and announced it as generosity. And I'm the embarrassment? Nobody moved. I saw Aunt Patricia's hand cover her mouth. Uncle Robert was already reaching for something beneath the table. Mom had miscalculated. Badly. Mom's composure finally snapped. You know what? She spun toward me, finger pointing. This is your fault, Aria. You always do this. I flinched. You sit there, quiet as a mouse, and then act surprised when things don't go your way. Her voice rose. You never speak up. You never participate. You just sulk in corners and expect everyone to read your mind. Linda. Dad tried to intervene. No, Richard. Someone needs to say it. Mom's eyes were wild now. Madison has been carrying this family. She has a husband, a child, real responsibilities. Aria sits at home typing on her computer and calls it a career. The words hit like punches. Your sister sacrifices every day for her family. What do you sacrifice, Aria? Nothing. You give nothing. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of everyone. Sisters help each other. Mom's voice dripped with righteous anger. Madison needed that car. A good sister, a real sister, would have offered it without being asked. I would have, I heard myself say, if someone had asked. Don't play victim. It doesn't suit you. Madison sat frozen, staring at the tablecloth. Derek had his arm around her, but looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. I was about to stand up, about to walk out and never look back. Then another voice cut through the tension. That's enough, Linda. Aunt Patricia was on her feet, her face flushed with anger. I sat through this exact treatment when we were kids. I won't watch you do it to your daughter. Mom's head whipped toward her sister. Patricia, stay out of this. No, Patricia's voice was firm. Not this time. Aunt Patricia walked around the table toward my mother. I was the flexible one in our house, Linda, remember? Her voice was steady but carried decades of weight. You got the bigger room, the newer clothes, the later curfew. And every single time I complained, Mom and Dad said I should be more understanding. Mom's jaw clenched. That has nothing to do with— It has everything to do with this. Patricia stopped next to Grandma's chair. I spent years in therapy learning that what happened to me wasn't normal. And now I'm watching you do the exact same thing to Arya. The room was cemetery silent. She's not being selfish for wanting her car back. Patricia's eyes swept across the table. She's not being difficult. She's being a person with basic boundaries. Madison finally looked up. Aunt Patricia, I really didn't know. Then you should have asked. Patricia didn't soften. That's the whole point. You should have asked. I felt something shift in my chest. For the first time in my life, someone in my family was standing up for me. Someone understood. Grandma placed a hand on Patricia's arm. A gentle, approving gesture. This isn't about a car anymore, Grandma said. This is about whether our family treats all its members with respect, or only the ones who demand it loudest. She looked at me then, and I saw something in her eyes that I'd never noticed before. Pride. Robert, she said again. The folder. This time no one interrupted. Uncle Robert reached beneath the table and pulled out a manila envelope. Mom watched the envelope like it was a loaded weapon. And in a way it was. Okay, I need to pause here for a second. If you've ever been in a situation where your family talked about you like you weren't even in the room, where they made decisions for you and expected you to just accept it, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Would you have spoken up at this point, or would you have waited like I did? Also, if you're enjoying this story, hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Now, let's get back to what happened next. Because trust me, Grandma wasn't done. Uncle Robert stood and crossed to Grandma's side of the table. The manila envelope looked ordinary, just beige paper and a metal clasp. But the way Mom stared at it, you'd think it contained nuclear codes. Mother. Mom's voice had lost its edge, replaced by something close to pleading. Whatever you're about to do, please. Not here, not in front of everyone. Grandma took the envelope from Robert's hands. You had every opportunity to handle this privately, Linda. She opened the clasp slowly, deliberately. 3 weeks. You could have returned the car, apologized, made it right. I was going to. Instead, you announced to 40 people that Arya gave away her birthday gift. Grandma withdrew a stack of papers. You turned theft into a story about your daughter's generosity. She spread the documents on the white tablecloth. So the truth will be told in the same room, to the same audience. I craned my neck to see what she'd laid out. Official-looking papers, something with a logo I recognized, the DMV. Robert, please read the first document aloud. Uncle Robert picked up the top paper, adjusted his reading glasses, and cleared his throat. Vehicle registration, State of California. He paused, finding the relevant line. Registered owner, Eleanor Mitchell. Gasps rippled through the room. That's just for convenience, Mom stammered. For tax purposes. Everyone does that. Do they? Grandma's eyebrow rose. Robert, continue. He turned to the next document. This appears to be some kind of agreement. He scanned it quickly, his expression shifting from confusion to understanding to something like grim satisfaction. Read it, Grandma instructed. All of it? Every word. Mom's hands were shaking, and I finally understood what was about to happen. Uncle Robert's voice carried across the silent room. Family Trust Disbursement Agreement, dated March 15th of last year. He paused, then continued reading. I, Linda Reynolds, hereby acknowledge receipt of $28,000 from the Mitchell Family Trust. Someone whispered, 28,000? Robert kept going. These funds are designated for the purchase of a vehicle as a birthday gift for my daughter, Arya Reynolds. He looked up briefly, then returned to the document. I confirm that this vehicle will be registered in Eleanor Mitchell's name, but will serve as the sole property of Aria Reynolds for her personal use. My heart hammered against my ribs. Furthermore, Robert continued, I agree that this vehicle cannot be transferred, sold, loaned, or otherwise given to any other family member without the explicit written consent of Aria Reynolds. He lowered the paper. It's signed, Linda Reynolds, witnessed by... He squinted. Witnessed by Robert Mitchell. That's me. He looked at Mom. I witnessed this, Linda. I remember now. You told me it was routine trust paperwork. Mom's face had turned the color of ash. I didn't think, it was just a formality. $28,000 from my trust. Grandma's voice was ice. Given specifically for Aria, with explicit conditions you agreed to. In writing. Aunt Carol leaned over to her husband. She signed a legal agreement? It appears so, he murmured back. Madison was crying now, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. Derek held her but kept his eyes fixed on the floor. Do you understand now? Grandma addressed the room. This wasn't a family car that Linda could redistribute as she pleased. This was Aria's property, funded by me, protected by contract. She paused. And Linda took it anyway. There's more. Grandma gestured for Robert to continue. He pulled out another sheet, this one handwritten, the ink slightly faded. This appears to be a personal letter of commitment. Robert examined it closely. Also signed by Linda. Mom made a sound like a wounded animal. I don't see why. Read it, Robert. He cleared his throat and began. To Mother. I promise that the car purchased with your gift will remain Aria's and Aria's alone. I understand that she has often felt overlooked in our family, and I want this gift to show her that she matters. I will never take this car from her or allow anyone else to use it without her explicit permission. Robert's voice cracked slightly. I am grateful for your generosity and will honor this commitment. Your daughter, Linda. The room was frozen. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. My mother had written those words, acknowledged that I felt overlooked, promised to do better, and then broke every single promise. That letter, Grandma said slowly, was your idea, Linda, not mine. You wanted to put your commitment in writing to show me you understood. Mom's lips moved, but no sound came out. Did you lie to me then? Or did you simply forget your promises the moment they became inconvenient? Aunt Patricia shook her head in disgust. Uncle Robert set down the papers like they burned his hands. Madison sobbed openly now. Mom, how could you? You told me Aria didn't care about the car. I thought... Mom's voice finally broke through. I thought it would be fine. She never complains. She never had to. Grandma's words fell like a gavel. That was the whole point. The verdict was in. Madison stood up abruptly, mascara streaking her cheeks. Grandma, I swear I didn't know. Her voice was raw, desperate. Mom told me Aria said yes. She said Aria thought it made more sense for me to have it because of Ethan. Grandma regarded her eldest granddaughter without warmth. And you believed that without question? Did you call your sister? Text her? Send a single message asking how she felt? Madison's mouth opened. Nothing came out. You didn't. Grandma nodded slowly. Because it was easier not to ask. Easier to accept what benefited you and assume everyone else was fine. Derek tried to intervene. Eleanor, surely we can discuss this somewhere more private. Private? Grandma's laugh was razor-sharp. Your mother-in-law announced Aria's generosity to every person in this room. She made a public statement. A false one. She swept her gaze across the 40 faces watching in stunned silence. This was made public, so it will be resolved publicly. Linda humiliated Aria in front of everyone. The truth deserves the same audience. Several relatives nodded. I saw Aunt Patricia's hand reach for mine under the table, squeezing gently. Arya didn't give away anything. Grandma's voice rose. She was robbed by her own mother and sister, in broad daylight, and then blamed for being upset about it. Mom, I'm so sorry. Madison turned to me, tears flowing freely. I really am. I should have asked. For the first time that evening, I saw something genuine in my sister's face. Not the entitled assumption I'd grown used to. Something closer to shame. I didn't respond. Couldn't yet. Because Grandma was reaching for one final document, and I knew we weren't done. Grandma rose from her chair. At 70 years old, standing at the head of that long table in her navy blue dress, she looked like a queen about to deliver a royal decree. Here is what will happen. Her voice left no room for negotiation. The car will be returned to Arya tonight, before anyone leaves this restaurant. Mom's head snapped up. Tonight? But Madison needs to figure out her own transportation, like every other adult. Grandma turned to my sister. Madison, the keys. Now. For a moment, I thought Madison would argue. Her jaw tightened. Derek's hand gripped her shoulder. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a keychain. My keychain. The one with the small silver compass charm I'd bought at a flea market the week after I got the car. She walked toward me, each step heavy. I'm sorry, Arya. Her voice was barely a whisper. I really am. She placed the keys in my palm. The metal was warm from her purse. Familiar weight. My keys. My car. Mine again. Thank you, I said quietly. Just 2 words. That was all I could manage. Grandma nodded, satisfied. And Linda. She turned to my mother. You owe your daughter an apology, not for the car, for the way you've treated her, for making her invisible in her own family. Mom stood rigid, her face a battlefield of emotions. Shame, anger, defiance, fear. Linda, Grandma's voice hardened. Now! 40 people held their breath, and my mother, for perhaps the first time in her life, had absolutely nowhere to hide. Mom's face had turned the color of old brick, flushed, mottled, barely contained. Arya. The word came out tight, forced. I apologize. I should have asked you before letting Madison use the car. That was it. A thin, technical admission. Nothing real. Grandma's eyes narrowed. That's your apology? For 3 weeks of theft? For lying to everyone here? For humiliating your daughter in front of her entire family? I said I was sorry. You said words. There's a difference. The tension in the room was unbearable. I could hear someone's watch ticking 3 seats away. But something had shifted in me during the past hour. I'd watched my mother lie, deflect, attack, and finally squirm under the weight of truth. I'd seen who she really was. And I realized I didn't need a genuine apology from her. I needed boundaries. Mom. I stood up, keys still clutched in my hand. I accept your apology. Relief flickered across her face. But I need you to understand something. I kept my voice steady, professional, the tone I used with difficult clients. From now on, any decision that involves me, my property, or my life, you ask me directly, not through Madison, not through Dad, me. Arya, you don't decide for me anymore. I held her gaze. I'm not the flexible one. I'm not the backup option. I'm your daughter, and I deserve to be asked. The room was silent. Grandma watched me with something I'd never seen directed at me before. Pride. Real, unconditional pride. That's my granddaughter, she said softly. And for the first time in 24 years, I felt like I actually existed in this family. Grandma wasn't finished. She waited until I sat down, then addressed the room again. There's one more matter to discuss. Mom groaned. Actually groaned, like a teenager being scolded. The Mitchell family trust. Grandma folded her hands. As most of you know, your grandfather established this trust before he passed. It was meant to help future generations of our family. Nods around the table. This was common knowledge. Until now, I've distributed trust funds through my children, Linda, Robert, and Patricia. They submitted requests on behalf of their families, and I approved or denied them. She paused, letting the words settle. That ends today. Mom's head snapped up. What? From this point forward, I will work directly with each grandchild. No intermediaries, no parents deciding who deserves what. Her gaze swept the table, landing on each cousin in turn. You're all adults. You can speak for yourselves. Uncle Robert nodded slowly. That seems fair. More than fair, Aunt Patricia agreed. But Mom looked like she'd been slapped. Mother, you can't just... The trust has always been managed through you? Grandma's eyebrow rose. So you could decide which of your daughters deserves support? So you could take money meant for Aria and redirect it to Madison because you deemed her more worthy? Mom had no response. I've watched how you treat your children, Linda, all of you, Grandma's voice carried to every corner, and I've decided that my grandchildren deserve better than being filtered through their parents' favoritism. Madison and I exchanged a glance, brief, uncertain, but meaningful. The power structure of our family had just shifted, and Mom was no longer the gatekeeper. Wow. I still remember the silence in that room after Grandma said that. If you're watching this and thinking about your own family dynamics, who holds the power, who makes the decisions, who gets overlooked, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done in my position? Comment below. I would have. And let me know. Also, subscribe if you want to see more stories like this. I post new ones every week. Now let me tell you what happened after we left that restaurant. The party ended 20 minutes after Grandma's announcement. Not officially. People still ate cake, sang happy birthday, posed for photos. But the energy had drained from the room like air from a punctured balloon. Mom and Dad left first, barely saying goodbye. Madison and Derek followed shortly after, Ethan asleep against Derek's shoulder. Madison paused at the door, looked back at me and mouthed, "I'm sorry." I nodded. It wasn't forgiveness, just acknowledgement. Aunt Patricia found me in the parking lot, standing next to my car, running my fingers along the door handle. "You okay, sweetheart?" "I don't know." I laughed weakly. "Is this what normal feels like? I've been invisible so long I forgot." She pulled me into a hug. Tight, warm. The kind of hug I'd stopped expecting from family. "You did the right thing tonight. Standing up for yourself. That took courage. Grandma did most of the heavy lifting. She set the stage, but you walked onto it." Patricia pulled back, holding my shoulders. "I'm proud of you, Arya, and I'm proud of who you're becoming." Uncle Robert shook my hand before he left. "Welcome to the club," he said with a wry smile. "The not the favorite club. Meetings are Tuesdays." I laughed for the first time all night. Grandma was the last one out of the restaurant. She walked slowly but steadily, waving off offers of help. "Drive safe, sweetheart," she said, patting my cheek. "Grandma, thank you for everything." "Don't thank me." Her eyes twinkled. "Just promise me you'll never be flexible again." "I promise." I drove home alone that night. Windows down, music up, mine. 2 weeks passed in uncomfortable silence. No calls from Mom, no texts from Madison. Dad sent one awkward message, "Hope you're doing okay," that I responded to with a thumbs up emoji. Then, on a Tuesday evening, Mom called. I stared at her name on my phone for 3 full rings before answering. "Arya?" Her voice was carefully neutral. "I think we should talk." "Okay." "I don't want this family to fall apart over a car." She sighed heavily. "It was a misunderstanding. Can we move past it?" A misunderstanding? You know what I mean. Things got out of hand. I shouldn't have brought it up at the party, and neither should your grandmother. I noticed what she didn't say. No acknowledgement of what she did wrong. No recognition that she'd stolen from me and lied about it. Mom, I'm willing to talk, but you need to understand. Good. She cut me off. Actually, before we meet, I wanted to ask you something. Here it comes. Has Grandma talked to you about the trust? About what she plans to do now that she's managing things directly? There it was. The real reason for the call. If you want to know about the trust, ask Grandma yourself. I'm asking you. Has she said anything about plans for the grandchildren? About distributions? My chest tightened with old, familiar disappointment. Mom, if the only reason you're calling is to find out if I'm getting money from Grandma, that's not... Then this conversation is over. I kept my voice steady. When you want to talk about what actually happened, I'll be here. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up before she could respond. Some things, I was learning, couldn't be fixed with a phone call. A month after the party, Madison texted me. Not about cars, not about Grandma or trusts or family drama. Just, can we get coffee? I need to talk. Really talk. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to protect the peace I'd finally found. But another part, a quieter part, remembered that Madison hadn't chosen to be the favorite any more than I'd chosen to be overlooked. We met at a small cafe near my apartment. Madison arrived looking exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, nothing like the polished older sister I'd grown up envying. Thanks for meeting me. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure either. We sat in silence for a moment. I've been thinking a lot since the party, Madison finally said, about everything, about how I never questioned things, about how I just took. Madison, let me finish. Her eyes met mine. I was always the priority. I got used to it. I never thought about how that felt for you. She swallowed hard. Mom made it easy to not think. She handled everything, made all the decisions, told me what to believe. And you believed her. I did. Because it was convenient. Tears gathered in her eyes. I'm not blaming Mom. I'm an adult. I should have asked you. About the car. About everything. I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly. Something more fragile. I don't need you to be perfect, Madison. The words came slowly. I just need you to ask. To see me. That's all I've ever wanted. She reached across the table and grabbed my hand. I'm trying. I really am. I know. It wasn't a fix, but it was a start. 6 months later, my relationship with Grandma Eleanor had transformed. Every Sunday afternoon, I drove my SUV with its little compass charm back on the keychain, to her house. Not secretly, like before. Openly. Proudly. We'd sit in her garden or her sunny kitchen, drinking tea she insisted on brewing the proper way. She'd tell me stories about Grandpa, about their early years together, about the family before it got complicated. You know why I like you, Arya? She said one afternoon, pruning her rose bushes. Because I'm your favorite? She laughed. Because you remind me of me. I set down my tea. What do you mean? I was the flexible one too. Her voice softened. The youngest girl in a house full of brothers. I learned to be invisible. To take what was given and never ask for more. She touched a white rose, adjusting its position toward the sun. Your grandfather was the first person who actually saw me. He said I was wasting myself being small. She smiled, lost in memory. He made me promise to never shrink again. I thought about all the years I'd spent shrinking, making myself smaller so others could feel bigger. I wish someone had told me that sooner, I said. Grandma turned to me, her eyes bright. I'm telling you now. She reached out and squeezed my hand. I wish I'd had someone in my corner sooner. That's why I'm in yours. I hugged her then. Properly. The way I should have hugged her years ago. Thank you, Grandma, for everything. Don't thank me. She patted my back. Just keep being exactly who you are. That's all the thanks I need. Some lessons take 70 years to teach, but they're worth every moment of waiting. So where do things stand now? My relationship with Mom is complicated. We talk, but carefully. She knows there are lines she can't cross anymore. Sometimes I catch glimpses of the mother I wish she'd been, moments of genuine warmth that make me wonder what could have been different. But I don't wait for her to change. I've stopped expecting her to see me the way I needed to be seen. Madison and I are rebuilding, slowly. She's learning to ask before assuming, and I'm learning to trust that she actually wants to know. We'll never be close the way some sisters are. But we're honest with each other now, and that's more than we ever had. Dad stays neutral, which is its own kind of choice. I've accepted that about him. And Grandma? Grandma taught me the most important lesson of my life. Being flexible doesn't mean being invisible. Keeping the peace doesn't mean losing yourself. I'm 25 now. I have my apartment, my job, my car with its little compass charm, my weekly teas with a 70-year-old woman who refuses to let me shrink. I'm not the flexible one anymore. I'm the one with boundaries. And if you're watching this, if you're stuck in a family that overlooks you, takes from you, expects you to always be the one who gives in, I want you to know something. You have the right to say no. You have the right to be asked. You have the right to take up space in your own life. Someone out there sees you. Maybe they haven't spoken up yet. Maybe, like my grandma, they're waiting for the right moment. But you don't have to wait for them. You can start speaking up for yourself. Today, that's my story. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, I want you to know you're not alone. Drop a comment below and tell me, what boundary did this story inspire you to set? And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell. I share stories like this every week, all about finding your voice and standing your ground. Check the description for more videos in this series. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.